Everyone, it's Shawn. On today's Your Leadership Coach video, I'm going to talk about how we can cultivate diversity through building trust. Okay, so as we get started, why is diversity important? Well, let me read you what Gallup says great leaders do. Okay, here's a quote from their book, Strengths-Based Leadership. Leaders stay true to who they are. That's what great leaders do. They're self-aware. And then make sure they have the right people around them. Those who surround themselves with similar personalities will always be at a disadvantage in the long run to those who are secure enough in themselves to enlist partners with complementary strengths. Great leaders, self-aware, and they build diverse teams. And so what do we mean by diversity? Well, we mean they're diverse in terms of the strengths that are on the team, in terms of gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status. That's going on. That's what we mean by diversity. Well, how do we get started? I love what Gino Wickham says in his book, Traction. Here's what he says. Trust creates an open culture in which everyone feels comfortable talking about issues as they arise. You see, you cannot have diversity without trust. So real quick today, what I want to do is that I want to share how you can cultivate diversity by building trust through creating what I like to call a safe environment. And that's the acronym that we're going to use, SAFE, okay? So S in this, all right, is C. All right, so we've got to see our employees as people and not numbers, right? There are people that have emotions, that have struggles, right, that have souls, right? So that's the first thing. But then we also have to see individuals and not just groups. We have to see the things that really make them unique, right, for who they are, their backgrounds, their experiences that they've been through. And then finally, I think we just have to have this understanding, right, this 40,000 foot view, that we want to create diverse teams, not for the sake of diversity, but because when we create diverse teams, it's the most effective. Diverse teams, when there's diversity there, everybody wins, right? Perspectives are broadened. Deep-seated biases, misunderstandings, maybe even false assumptions get unearthed. Strengths are maximized, and then weaknesses are minimized. That's what we have to see. And then the A is authenticity. We have to be authentic. Well, it starts off with humility. We have to recognize that we might be wrong in some areas. We might have some unconscious bias that we didn't have to realize. Right? So we have to look inside ourselves first and acknowledge and recognize those. Secondly, when it comes to being authentic, man, we have to practice transparent communication. We have to be willing to be vulnerable, to kind of lead out. Maybe say, hey, look, I don't understand this fully. Right? Let's talk about this a little bit more. I might be wrong in some areas. Can you give me perspective? Right? Remember this, vulnerability is contagious. So as a leader, it starts with you. You have to step out with this. And then I would also say when it comes to being authentic, we have to be willing to apologize. If we get it wrong, if we say something that offends, right, we need to ask for forgiveness instead of make excuses right there. Now, I do want to say this when we talk about being authentic. The goal is not that everybody sees our opinion, right? The goal is not like mutual agreement. The goal is that, man, we practice empathy and respect and we understand where the other person is coming from. The goal is not uniformity. It's to be able to have unity, and that starts with understanding the other person's perspective, okay? So now our F, right? So we got C, we got authenticity, and then F is we have to follow through. And the way we start with this, right, is as Stephen Covey says in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, we seek to understand before being understood. So many people, especially for social media, we just want to share our opinion. What if we listen first? We ask questions and we listen. I love what David L. Cook says in the book, Golf's Sacred Journey. He says, people all have stories. They just don't have many listeners. So man, what if we listened to people's backgrounds and experiences and struggles and really sought to understand where they're coming from before we want to share our opinion or our experiences. And then I think the second thing we're following through is we have to act. We have to do something about this. We just can't talk about this, right? Frustration comes from unmet expectations. So as a leader, it starts with you. As you are taking information, as you're hearing about the struggles and the experiences of people, then you need to act on this to be able to start creating this safe environment. And then finally, the E is encourage. The reason why I call this cultivating diversity is because we never arrive at this. It's something that we have to keep working on. And so the way we do that is we encourage. When we see people making progress, man, we recognize that. What gets rewarded gets repeated. And then the other thing we do to encourage this is we celebrate our differences and the things that make us unique. Oh, that's a huge win that can happen when we're able to celebrate. You see, our differences, they will either divide or they'll unify. And they unify when we celebrate those things that make us unique. Okay? Now, I will tell you this. This is just the starting point. Okay? This sounds simple, but it's not easy, right? It's something that we have to continue to work on and do with consistency. So here's my game plan for you. As you think about this acronym S.A.F.E, which area do you struggle with? Do you see employees as like people and not just numbers, right? When it comes to authenticity, right? Are you willing to be vulnerable? Are you willing to have the humility to admit that you just might be wrong in some areas, right? When it comes to following through, are you seeking to understand? Are you listening to people's stories? Or are you just kind of sharing your opinion all the time, thinking you're always right? And then finally, E, man, are you encouraging other people? Are you celebrating the things that make us different so that they can unify us instead of divide us? Right there. Let me leave you with our tweetable lesson. You can't have diversity without trust.